the deep dive. Today we're tackling something I think a lot of us think about. Why is it so darn hard to quit fast food? You know, junk food. It feels like more than just needing more willpower.
That's exactly right. It's easy to just say, oh, lack of self-control, but when you dig in, it's a whole system, really, a complex web of reasons.
And we're using a fantastic guide for this. Eric Schlosser's Fast Food Nation came out back in 2001, but still feels so relevant. And it's not just about diet, is it?
Not at all. That's what's so powerful about it. Schlosser goes way beyond just the food. He looks at, the economy, the actual landscape of America, the workforce, even our culture.
Wow.
Yeah, he argues the whole industry fundamentally reshaped things. It wasn't an accident we eat this way. It was engineered. Deliberate choices by the industry.
Okay, so that's our mission today then, to kind of untangle all these threads, why this all-American habit is so sticky. We want to give you that shortcut to understanding it. And honestly, some of the stuff we found is pretty surprising. So let's start with the food itself. It tastes good, obviously, but there's more going on, right?
What's the science making it so compelling?
Yeah, the science is fascinating, and Schlosser really gets into it. It's about how the food is produced industrially and the chemistry involved in creating those flavors we all recognize instantly.
Chemistry, like artificial flavors.
Exactly. He points to the flavor industry big chemical companies, often as being key. A lot of what you taste in fast food doesn't actually come from, say, the meat or the potato itself.
Really? So my burger taste isn't just burger?
In many cases, no. A huge part of flavor is actually smell, right? As you chew, compounds hit your nose.
Okay.
And your brain mixes that with the taste on your tongue, sweet, salty, etc. Fast food companies use these lab-created flavors and aromas to make sure it tastes exactly the same, consistently everywhere.
That's kind of wild, designing flavor. And I've heard about this bliss point idea. What is that?
The bliss point. Super important concept. It's basically the perfect amount of salt, sugar, and fat needed to max out the pleasure sensors in our brains. Perfect amount. Calculated.
Oh, absolutely. Food scientists, in corporate labs, they work out the precise ratios for maximum appeal.
Yeah.
For drinks, fries, the whole meal. It's not accidental.
So it's hitting these evolved triggers we have for energy.
Exactly. We're wired to seek out salt, sugar, fat. They signal calories, survival. Fast food just delivers them in these super concentrated, optimized ways. Hits that bliss point perfectly.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The brain's reaction. It's not just, tasty, is it?
No, it's deeper than that. Eating these bliss point foods triggers dopamine release. That's the brain's reward chemical. Feels good, makes you want to do it again.
Like addictive substances?
The mechanism is strikingly similar, yes. Repeated exposure to these, let's call them hyperpalatable foods, can actually change your brain chemistry over time. You might need more to get the same feeling.
Wow.
Schlosser puts it bluntly. He says they've engineered them to be addictive with all that fat, salt, and sugar.
That's a heavy statement. And it connects to what you said about artificial flavors. They can cover up other tastes.
Precisely. If you're using maybe lower-cost ingredients, these really potent engineered flavors can make the final product still taste great. They mask things.
And that changes what we expect food to taste like.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you start young, your palate gets kind of calibrated to these intense flavors. Natural foods, like a plain piece of fruit, might start seeming bland in comparison.
And you mentioned starting young. There's that whole memory and emotion connection too, right?
Huge connection. Food memories from childhood are powerful. Think about comfort food. Often stuff from when you were a kid.
Yeah, definitely.
Fast food companies know this. They work hard to build those positive associations early on. Family fun, treats, happiness. It links the brand to good feelings deep down.
Okay, so it's like a 1-2 punch. The food is engineered to be almost addictive chemically, and then the marketing layers on all this positive emotion and memory.
Exactly. You put it all together, the salt, sugar, fat, the artificial flavors, the texture, even the portion size is getting bigger, plus all the psychological marketing. It's this whole matrix designed to keep you coming back.
Right. Matrix is a good word for it. Let's
Yeah.
talk more about that marketing because it feels like it goes way beyond just commercials, especially with kids.
Oh, absolutely. Schlosser really unpacks the marketing machine, and the focus on children is pretty intense and deliberate.
It's that cradle to grave idea, isn't it? Get them young.
That's the term. Ray Kroc of McDonald's saw it early on.
Yeah.
Kids are the key to long-term customers. Build that loyalty, those eating habits, when they're small, and you might have them for life.
It's kind of chilling. Schlosser compared it to big tobacco tactics, right?
He did, using cartoon mascots, for instance, that become really familiar and loved by kids. Think Joe Camel, but for burgers.
Yeah, unsettling. What are the specific tactics for kids?
Well, you see it everywhere, right? The super bright, playful restaurants, the playgrounds inside or outside, the characters.
Ronald McDonald.
Yeah. Exactly. And the master stroke,
Mm.
the Happy Meal. That free toy is genius marketing. It's often tied into the latest kids movie or craze. The toy becomes the main event for the kid.
Drives the purchase, makes the kid demand it.
Totally. Schlosser cites this incredible stat. Something like 90% of American kids aged 3 to 9 were eating at McDonald's every month back then. Just shows the reach.
90%. Wow. And it leaks outside the restaurant too, doesn't it? Into schools.
Yeah, that's a really controversial part he covers. Schools, often needing funds, making deals, advertising on school buses, inside hallways, using sponsored educational materials.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah, and exclusive deals for drinks, pouring rights, or even having branded fast food right there in the school cafeteria.
That just feels wrong, blurring lines between education and selling stuff.
It does, and it normalizes it, right?
Yeah.
Makes the brands part of the everyday school environment, implicit endorsement.
So that normalization, it happens outside schools too, just by them being everywhere.
Definitely. The sheer number of outlets, the constant advertising, you see TV, billboards, online now, it makes fast food feel like a totally normal, inevitable part of life. Convenient, fast, maybe even fun family time.
It stops being a specific choice and just becomes the default.
Sort of, yeah. It sinks into the cultural background noise. Resisting it actually takes conscious effort then.
Especially if you started young with those positive associations.
Exactly. Those early links are strong. And then there's the pester power factor. Kids see the ads, want the toy, want the food, and they nag their parents.
Been there.
Right. And parents are busy, stressed.
Yeah.
It's often easier to just give in, which of course reinforces the whole cycle. Fast food becomes a family ritual.
A very profitable ritual for the industry. Okay, so the food is engineered, the marketing is relentless. But even if you know all that, wanting to eat better isn't always easy because of bigger things, right? The system itself.
You've got it. The whole economic and agricultural structure kind of props up the fast food model. It starts with how they make it so cheap. That speedy service system Schlosser describes.
The assembly line for food.
Basically, yeah. Standardization, efficiency. That keeps prices down. But it also depends heavily on low-wage labor.
Who typically does those jobs?
Often teenagers, immigrants, sometimes seniors. People in more vulnerable economic positions, jobs with few skills needed, high turnover, not much advancement.
And the industry fights things like minimum wage increases.
Historically, yes.
Yeah.
And unionization efforts, too. Keeping labor costs rock bottom is key to the low menu prices, which makes it affordable, especially for people struggling financially. But it kind of traps the workers, too.
Difficult cycle. And what about farming? How did fast food change that?
Profoundly. Think about McDonald's needing identical French fries,
Yeah.
millions of them. That led to huge companies demanding very specific types of potatoes grown on a massive scale.
Like dominating the market.
Exactly. Consolidation. Same with beef for burgers. A few giant meat packers control most of it. It puts immense pressure on smaller, independent farmers. They can't compete on volume or price.
And we lose variety in what's grown.
We do. It pushes agriculture towards uniformity, monocultures. Just a few types of potatoes, a few breeds of cattle, less biodiversity.
Even the franchise model seems like small businesses, but it's still centrally controlled.
Very much so. Franchisees own the store, yes, but they have to follow incredibly strict rules from corporate about everything. Food prep, decor, suppliers.
Ensures consistency.
Right, but limits any local variation. The parent company makes a lot from rent and royalties. It's less about empowering entrepreneurs, more about expanding the brand footprint uniformly.
And there's access. Sometimes fast food is literally the only option around.
That's the harsh reality of food deserts. Often in lower-income areas, often communities of color. You'll find plenty of fast food places, corner stores with chips and soda, but no proper supermarket with fresh fruit and vegetables for miles.
So choice isn't really choice if there are no alternatives.
Exactly. It's often linked to histories of disinvestment, redlining, systemic issues, and even government policies, like farm subsidies, can end up favoring the big commodity crops, corn, soy, that are the building blocks of processed and fast food.
Wow. Okay. So it really is a system. The cheap price comes from the labor and farming practices, the marketing makes you want it, and in some places, it's all that's easily available.
You nailed it. It's interconnected. The convenience isn't magic. It's the result of all these other factors. It becomes the path of least resistance for millions.
Okay, path of least resistance, but it comes with costs, right? Hidden costs. Fast Food Nation talks a lot about those.
Oh, definitely. The costs are huge. and often, like you said, hidden. The most obvious is public health. The link between the rise of fast food and soaring rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease is pretty undeniable.
And supersizing didn't help.
Not at all. More calories, fat, sugar for just pennies more. Great for profits, terrible for health. And the cost of treating all these chronic diseases, massive. It burdens the whole healthcare system, not to mention individuals and families.
Beyond chronic disease, though, Schlosser had some scary stuff about food safety. That quote about what's in the meat.
Yes, his investigation into meatpacking was damning. There is shell in the meat. His words. He described how the push for speed on the processing lines, combined with, frankly, poor sanitation, means fecal contamination is a real risk. And because ground beef mixes meat from potentially hundreds of animals, one contaminated bit can spread pathogens really widely. Centralization means bigger, faster outbreaks when things go wrong.
That's terrifying. And the workers in those plants face risks, too.
Huge risks. Schlosser called meatpacking the most dangerous job in America.
Yep.
Awful injury rates from the machinery, the speed, often vulnerable workers who might be afraid to speak up.
Just terrible.
And even fast food workers face risks, robberies, violence. It's all part of keeping costs down, that pressure on labor.
So the cheap burger isn't really cheap. The costs are just pushed onto workers' health, public health, food safety.
Exactly. And the environment, too. We touched on monoculture farming, but there's also massive water use, pollution from giant feedlots, CAFOs.
Concentrated animal feeding operations.
Right. Greenhouse gases from livestock and processing, deforestation for grazing land, sometimes linked back to demand for cheap beef. It all adds up.
And communities, how are they affected?
Well, a huge processing plant can strain resources in a small town. And the dominance of chains everywhere. It changes the character of places. That mauling of America idea. Harder for local restaurants to survive.
The key thing seems to be that these costs, health, environment, worker safety, they aren't reflected in the price on the menu board.
Precisely. They're externalized. Society picks up the tab in other ways. Healthcare spending, environmental cleanup, social disruption makes the fast food seem artificially cheap.
Okay, so given all of this, the engineered food, the marketing onslaught, the economic system, the hidden costs, can we really expect people to just quit? Is that realistic?
It's a massive ask, isn't it? When food is designed to hook you, advertised constantly from childhood, is often the cheapest and most convenient option, and maybe the only option nearby. Resisting that takes enormous effort.
More than just willpower.
Way more. It's navigating a system stacked against you. Schlosser really frames it that way.
But awareness has increased since his book, right? More documentaries, more talk about food. Has that changed anything?
Awareness is definitely higher. Fast Food Nation, things like Supersize Me, they got people talking. There's more of a visible food movement, and now farmers markets, organic, local.
Right.
And for some people, that awareness has absolutely changed how they eat. But has it shifted the whole system on a grand scale? That's debatable. The fast food industry is still enormous. Convenience is powerful.
So individual action isn't enough. What about policy? What could actually make a difference systemically?
Yeah, real change probably needs policy levers. Things like stricter rules on marketing to kids, better food safety enforcement, not just rules, but teeth behind them.
Maybe taxes on sugary drinks or subsidies for vegetables.
Those kinds of fiscal policies, exactly. Make the healthy choice the easier, cheaper choice. And addressing the labor issues, minimum wage, the right to organize. Plus, tackling corporate lobbying power in food policy.
Schlosser thought these things were solvable.
He seemed to think so, yeah. With enough political will, enough public demand. But, the industry pushes back hard against most of these ideas.
We have seen some changes, though, like listing calories, getting rid of trans fats.
True. There's been some response to pressure, more transparency on ingredients from some chains, removing the worst offenders like trans fats. Some even try to market themselves as having better ingredients now.
Is that real change or just window dressing?
That's the question, isn't it? Critics would say it's often superficial. Adjustments to keep the public happy without changing the core model, still based on processed food, low labor costs, high volume. Adding a salad doesn't change the fact that the burger and fries are cheaper and pushed harder.
What about those alternatives? Farmers markets, CSAs, local food. Can they really compete?
They're growing, which is great. Shows a real desire for something different. They offer important alternatives, different models, but challenging the sheer scale, efficiency, and low cost of the dominant fast food system, that's a huge uphill battle for them.
So it feels like we know more. Some things have shifted slightly, But the basic structure Schlosser described is still very much in place.
I think that's a fair summary. Understanding why it's hard to quit means looking at that whole system. The
Yeah.
food, the ads, the economics, the access, the hidden costs, it's all tangled together.
So tackling it needs more than just telling people to eat better.
Absolutely. It likely needs that multi-pronged approach you mentioned, corporate accountability, better policies focused on health, making healthy food genuinely accessible and affordable for everyone, and really supporting those alternative food systems.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How our food choices are tied to, well, everything else. The kind of society we build. Definitely something to chew on next time you're thinking about lunch. Thanks for digging into this with us.